grain market economist, Dan O'Brien, and he's going to give us an update on the latest grain market trends. So Dan, welcome. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Samantha.
So today we're going to start off talking about some hot cash markets.
Yes, I know that that there's a lot of attention around the state with regard to the wheat harvest, and of course, when wheat harvest comes in, the normal seasonal patterns that we're dealing with quite often have to do with more than adequate wheat supplies rolling in, the tendency seasonally for prices to be soft or to decline during that time, and really interesting to see here with about 3 days in on the very southern part of the state where we stand on the wheat markets, and just really indicative of how strong the world wheat market is and how much concern there is with regard to where things could go in the next 12 months. Anyway, when you look at price, the highest prices of the 6 locations across the state that I try to follow pretty closely would be in Hutchinson and Topeka at 1133, 1123. Not far behind that, Salina 1128, and these are all very much export processor mill oriented locations. You go even the out into Garden City. It's just an amazing situation to consider historically. We're coming into harvest at Garden City and we're sitting at 1108 for a wheat price, 1090 in Colby and 1073 in out in Columbus in the southeast corner of the state. Since USDA report came out on Friday the 10th of June, it's interesting to look at the trend. We haven't during again we're coming into the wheat harvest time frame, and futures would often decline. The future underlying futures price would decline. July futures typically move lower coming into where we're at. Since that report came out, it's moved sideways. Haven't seen any weakness whatsoever. So just interesting to see. I think even on the export side for wheat, there's some positive here with the USDA really made no changes to their supply demand balance sheet for wheat. They're really kind of waiting for their a report at the end of September, their annual small grain summary. But even with that, we need a pace of about 15 million bushels a week cash physical product to move. Had a shipments on the week ending June 9th of about 13.6, and really new crop sales in the year that we're in of 22% of the way to the USDA's projection of 775 million, and we're only about 2 weeks in. So really some supportive news for the wheat export markets, for wheat markets overall, for wheat exports. And I think, Samantha, as we look and see how harvest comes into the areas that we're most worried about, again, Southwest, West Central, parts of South Central Kansas, then we'll get that much better of a picture of the supply situation here in Kansas. And if it comes in terms of weaker production, like we're expecting it might, the preliminary reports are, then really interesting to see if we see cash prices become that much stronger. At least the basis narrow up as elevators will be desirous of taking any product that they can get into their bins and to hold it, sell it, move it if they can. So be something to really watch, I think, for the wheat market in the next 1 or 2 weeks.
Sure. And like you said, that'll be here within the next couple of weeks going into July. So we'll get some answers on that here shortly, hopefully. And then in terms of the overall feed grain markets, what are we seeing in those markets right now?
Again, came out of that same report on June the 10th. And actually, we've had some sideways to higher movements on the future side. July futures closed up yesterday to 788 and a quarter. The highest it's been in about 2.5, 3 weeks. So, and cash prices for corn, one tremendous cash price, enough that you look at it twice and make sure you've got an accurate bid. In the Garden City, we have at least a listed bid of $9.23, which is a positive basis of $1.35. That was on yesterday's market. And great prices elsewhere too, an 834 in Topeka, Hutchinson 807, Colby 843. So it does seem like in these western parts of the state that that we're most concerned about probably dry weather and having adequate supplies for feedlots, for ethanol plants that are out here, et cetera, and seeing awfully strong prices. Grain sorghum prices, I don't want to short that either. Grain sorghum prices all pretty strong, really across the state in a range of about, it looks about 748 to 783. So strong there. I would say that here at KSU, we've been following grain sorghum for a while, for grain sorghum exports for a bit of time, and grain sorghum continues to chug along and have decent weeks of exports. Not barn burners, a tremendous blockbuster weeks, but generally a good solid weeks on pace. If it keeps this pace up, we could end up at the end of the year with a record high export number, but no 1 or 2 weeks that really drove it all, really just good consistent sales. And a lot of that, of course, goes to China. And so we're watching that pretty close. So, we stand back and look at the corn market, a lot on the line. We have hot, dry weather now as we come out in the latter part of June. And if the high pressure, hot temperatures would stay around into July, then we'd have just an awful lot of concern on where the corn production prospects would go, et cetera. So we'll see. Again, we talked about the next 30, 60 days being important for wheat. They'll really be important for corn. If we get into July, into pollination, into tasseling and pollination, and if we have hot temperatures at that time, then you really get a lot of people nervous here in the U.S.
Absolutely. So some important markets to keep in mind for sure in the coming days. And I know you've mentioned some volatility that we might be expecting in the market here to come, even ahead too.
Yes. At the end of the month, there'll be the June 30th crop acreage. Well, it'll be the acreage report for crop acreage. Basically, there'll be a stocks report tied in with that on that last day. And
this is coming from the USDA?
It would come from the USDA. It'll give us a picture of where final planted acres are for corn. And what we gain on corn, we'll probably lose out of soybeans, et cetera. So I anticipate volatility coming out of that report. I would say that the soybean markets don't need much more prompting to be volatile. Since that report a week ago, they've been pretty strong, up and down, setting new highs almost to $18. So be interesting. The more we draw into corn for acres earlier on, the more we're taking away from soybeans. And then where does the soybean market go? It just seems to be well supported going forward.
Sure, a reliable market for sure, and we hope it stays that way. So, Dan, any final thoughts as we conclude this week?
Just the most volatile of times. The inflation we hear about in the overall economy is certainly affecting us in agriculture. I think some of the biggest risks we have on the ag market side have to do with the happenings in the overall financial markets. And if they have gyrations and issues affecting them, then that affects the amount of money people are willing to invest in commodities. So some of our biggest risks right now in agriculture probably have to do with what's happening in the broader economy and financial markets, and how those impacts could come over and affect us on the grain side. So it's time to be watchful, especially as these broader issues of volatility affect us, and not just in the overall U.S. economy, but in agriculture as well.
Sure. And like we said, we just got in that latest WASDE report, and we've already seen changes even within that. So the global economy also just having an effect on everything, as well as what's going on ag-wise here in the States.
That's right. And you and I, as we go forward, we'll be watching energy markets as well as the grain markets. Again, we're ethanol producers, so we're all in the energy markets now. So ethanol, biodiesel are a good part of what's supporting grain prices, and we shall see going forward.
Yep, you mentioned some strong prices in that earlier, so we hope to see that ahead as time goes on. So thank you so much, Dan, for speaking with us this afternoon.
Thank you, Samantha. Appreciate it.
That was Dan O'Brien, our K-State grain market economist. Thank you so much.
Take care. Thanks.